Right, where were we, peeps? Ah, we were talking about The Matrix, of course we were. And for some reason that, like, wasn't very appealing for quite a while, and then I thought, come on, I haven't seen that movie in ages. Anyway, I decided to watch it again, and straight away was just sucked into it. I was like, yes, this movie is absolutely amazing. So yeah, I thought I remembered every little bit of it, and I didn't. There was quite a lot, actually, that I had forgotten about, and I just, watching it again, I was totally sucked into the movie. You see, I saw that movie the year it came out at a sleepover, and like I'd not heard anything about it. It was just like, hey, we're going to watch a movie. Look, here's this thing called The Matrix. And I remember watching it and just having this feeling after that. I was really young, and it was just like, I don't know quite what I've seen, but I know that it was absolutely amazing. So has anyone out there not actually seen The Matrix? Because it's such a classic, you just kind of assume everyone's seen it. Wow, some people are saying they haven't? Oh, you've got to do yourself a favor and go watch The Matrix, the first one. It's brilliant, it's brilliant. And watching it again, I know what the air quotes meaning of the movie and the parallels to reality that it infers to is, but watching it again and having a bit more of an inquisitive mind to pay attention to what's happening on the screen, it became like really apparent to me that the dialogue that leads up to the movie's conclusion and some of the things it tries to infer is really well written. I had this sense of like renewed pleasure from watching it again, like when you go back and you notice details and you realise that they're talking about things that makes more sense once you've seen the movie more than once, right? And it was one of those movies where when it came out, if someone hadn't seen it, you'd be like, dude, we've got to watch The Matrix. And then you'd watch The Matrix together. And so I think when it first came out, I must have seen that movie like 10, 12 times over the years, but I probably haven't seen it once in the last 15 years. And so watching it again, there are lots of sequences that I didn't really remember, but you kind of remember it once you start watching it again. And it was so good, and I thought the movie was so well structured as well. And what I like about a movie, I think I've really sussed out what I like in movies, is a sense of mystery or not quite knowing where things are going and being held in that space. And even knowing what's going to happen, you can follow the plot through, how things unfold, and realize that like this movie keeps you suspended in the unknown for quite a long time. Like well into the 90th minute, do you still feel like you're peeling back layers and unraveling things. And then the last half an hour of the movie devolves more into an action movie. Yeah, the action sequences are really good. I gotta say, some of it does look a little dated now. Some of the special effects are a bit rough around the edges, but the style and the way it's deployed is still just fantastic. I mean, some of you must have seen clips of some of the, like, what they call it, gun kata, where they fight with guns. In slow motion, all of this. Have you ever seen Dark City? Sticky Shorts, that was a movie I think I saw once and wanted to watch again, because I didn't watch it properly or something. But I think that one gets referred to in context with The Matrix. So Rabsy Ragu says, I love the bullet time sequences. Yeah, I mean, if you saw it at the time it came out, those were amazing when they first came out. Now they've been parodied and probably copied in some way or another to some extent. You see that kind of thing in other movies. I think they hold up really well. They're really terrific sequences, and they don't particularly outstay their welcome, but they also got that like shock value to them. So when it comes to the sequels, it loses all of that. And there was something that I realized when I was watching it and thinking about where the sequels go, because I don't think I watched the sequels more than once, maybe twice. I remember not liking them, and I thought the reason I didn't like them was because I was a little lefty going, oh, sellouts, man, they're just making the sequel so they can make more money. Like having that kind of attitude. That was me when I was young. I know, cringy. So I never really paid much attention to them. But watching them again, I was, yeah, I remember all of this, but like I couldn't have watched it more than twice. The sequels are far too much CGI, says Logical Geek Boy. Yeah, they have a lot of that. So what I realised when I was watching The Matrix is that the way the first movie ends does actually open itself up for a sequel in a ways. Like, it does not tie up all the loose ends, and I think that's really good when a movie does that. It leaves you thinking and wondering. You don't know what's actually going to happen. You just know this is where it ended. And spoiler alert, if you haven't seen it, okay, it ends up with a shot of a character. I'm just going to say it like this. Flying into the sky. Okay, so for those of you that have seen it, think about it. This is actually the beginning of a superhero movie, right? And it got me thinking that, you know, after watching the sequels, Reloaded and Revelations, what they do is they pivot it into a superhero movie. And a lot of the modern movies, these big Marvel Universe things, they're kind of got the same tone as the Matrix sequels. There's just these ridiculously long fight sequences, you know, of all the special effects and over-the-top fighting, which is actually really great. Like, the choreography is just fantastic in those sequel movies, but they kind of drag on. And the problem with the sequels is that there's no mystery, there's no suspense. Now they have to do world building, and the world building is not particularly great, and they try and weave in some of that mystery of the original movie through very vague dialogue between characters, always alluding to things that you're not quite sure what they're alluding to, and it doesn't really mean or make any sense in the grand context of those sequels. So I'd say, like, the sequels are pretty ropey, but they're entertaining, and if you love the world of the Matrix, they're worth checking out. But the big takeaway for me was just, they are these, like, the Marvel movies that are so popular today. This is it. The Matrix sequels is that. And I was thinking back to when I watched Wanda Vision and how it ended with this ridiculous fight in the sky where they're talking back and forth at one another. And for me, I'm completely uninvested in moments like that, because there are no rules to which you understand, or at least I do as a viewer. And it's the same in the Matrix. It's like this Neo versus Agent Smith thing. It's like, you have no comprehension of the extent of what their powers are or what the consequences of their actions. So it doesn't matter how many times Neo gets punched or Agent Smith does. None of it really tells you what's going to happen next. It's just this spectacle that you're watching unfold. And that's what I felt WandaVision was in its big, like, conclusion. It was just a spectacle of two people fighting in the sky with a lightning storm, shouting their feelings and emotions at each other, and just sitting there like, well, I have absolutely no idea, like, what any of this magical energy that they conjure means, where it's going to go, what is the point of it? I don't know. And so it's hard to be invested because you don't know what's at stake. You don't know how close one character is to die into the other, because it's just all these fantasy rules. The first Matrix, though, it was like peeling back the layer of this other world, and you could see what was on the line. But then by the time the next movies roll around, they're trying to build it out into something bigger, and it loses all of that. Yeah, that was my big takeaway from watching the Matrix movies again, is that these things are kind of like maybe the first. I don't know if they were the first, but they've definitely probably had an influence on these superhero movies that are super popular, because I felt like I was watching one of those movies. You know, the worst bits in the sequel were the dialogue sequences and the world building. Seeing the world was kind of cool from a visual perspective, but you couldn't really get invested in the characters very much, and there wasn't any room for mystery, and all it was trying to do was constantly play up this mystery. I mean, I still don't know, why on earth is Neo having a Matrix-like experience outside of it? Are they in a second layer of the Matrix? What on earth does that mean at the end? The ending of the movie is just such a typical spectacle of, you know, theatrics just leading up to, and, you know, Neo wins, but you have absolutely no idea what really happened. Bert Potato says, when I first saw The Matrix in cinema, I actively avoided any info about it. I saw the one clip of some bullet time action and decided I wanted to see it. Spoilers would have made it much less enjoyable for me. Yeah, well, like I said earlier, I got the experience of just watching it without knowing a thing about it. I don't think I'd even seen a trailer. It was just like, hey, rented this movie, do you want to watch it? And I was like, go on then. And then watched it, and my little mind was blown. Because it ends with, like, Rage Against the Machine and the screaming of the lyrics, Wake Up. And it's just such a perfect fit for everything you've seen in the movie. And then my little teenage mind was just, like, blown. Whoa, that was, like, about reality and stuff. Whoa. Like, life is like one big Matrix. Whoa. It's worth watching again for any of you that like it. Definitely always one to go back and watch from time to time. And if you haven't seen it, make sure you go check it out. It's such a brilliant movie. X, you know Evil Empire is a Ratum album. Of course I know that. Of course I know that. The second movie also ends with a Rage Against the Machine song, but the third movie didn't. If you think The Matrix is real, then give your life purpose before you get deleted. Does Glow Watts. Here's what I think The Matrix is about. And this is not like, this is what the people that wrote and made The Matrix think. This is like how I interpret that movie, okay? The idea of reality being constructed is not, to me, the takeaway isn't the idea of, oh yeah, it could all be a simulation. That's another thing about this movie, is that AI and simulation theory are quite relative in at least the stratosphere of the pop culture that I inhabit, you know, listening to podcasts and nerdy podcasts at that. But like AI and the simulation theory, thanks to probably Elon Musk, is more mainstream right now, and like it's there at the Matrix, right? Like 1999, they were all about that, about AI and machine learning and the simulation theory, right? That's all in the Matrix. And then here we are 20 years later, and now it's like actually a thing we're thinking about a lot more. But yeah, Tabzu Ragu says forewarning. I don't know if it was a forewarning, but my takeaway is just this. The idea that reality could be a construct around you you're existing in, okay, might seem a bit far-fetched, but society is a construct, and society is full of things that influence you, like advertising or just anything you encounter. So your entire life, who you are, is influenced by all the things you interact with and encounter. They shape you. And for me, it makes me think about seeing that more, right? If you're air quotes seeing the Matrix is maybe just stripping back what appears to be normal or acceptable or okay and just thinking about what's behind it. Because in the past, you can pick out some very pertinent examples, but there was a time when people thought smoking was good for you, right? And how was that achieved? How would the common person think that smoking was good for you? Well, they were able to advertise and get doctors to say, oh yeah, you know, smoking's good for you, right? And so if you take people from different periods in time and imagine them having like conversations with each other, there will be ideas that transcend, that are just, you know, human, deeply human, and then there will be other things that are very cultural. I mean, you take people from different countries and find cultural differences. You could take people from different time and find different time differences in values or things they know about, and like this is like the environment you're in is shaping you so much if you just think about those contrasts. Society is a construct, and discovering who you really are is essentially waking up, says Tyre Regelm. Yeah, maybe. The whole air quotes waking up requires you to be asleep, right? So if I were to apply that to my own person and self, I would say that if I were once asleep, I'm still in the process of waking up. To me, it's like you're always learning and you're always figuring out your own ignorances, your own shortcomings, and so it's not like a light switch. It's not like swallowing that one pill, right? I don't see it like that. It's not like a moment. Anyway, that was one heck of a waffle. So yeah, go watch The Matrix.